back. I'm going to spend this hour talking to Mr. Tom Fife. I remember reading this article when it came out, and it was so impelling and compelling and downright fascinating that people were emailing me asking me if it was real, if it was a hoax. How could this be real? It's entitled The First Time I Heard of Barack, and the author is my guest, Tom Fife. Welcome to the program, Tom.
Hello.
Hi. Glad you're here.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Charlotte Iserbeat set this up, and we have to thank Charlotte as well. Now, this essay, The First Time I Heard of Barack, really did go around the world. It got a lot of reading, a lot of exposure at my site, and as I just mentioned, I got emails about it and so forth. You might want to just kind of walk us through that and explain to us how this article came to be and what's behind it, because it's most intriguing.
Okay, well, it's kind of a tale of two cities in a certain respect. It occurred, of course, back in '92 in a dinner conversation in Moscow.
What were you doing in Moscow, Tom?
Yes, I was a software developer, and I was over there with a British friend doing some relief work for the. It was at the time of the Soviet Union collapsing, and so I went over there with him. He invited me over there to help him with some what he called infrastructure work, and that was basically to set up a network of fax machines so these people could communicate to each other on the telephone lines.
Right.
And well, basically, we went over to do this relief work, and I got to know some people with the Russian Academy of Science, and we started chatting, and we decided we had some common ground in developing some software, and so that's why I was there, or that's why I ended up there in early '92.
Right.
And talking to the people there, and
this occurred at a dinner, the primary disclosure.
Yeah.
Well, tell us about the dinner, Tom. How many were there? Where was it held? What kind of an atmosphere was it?
Yeah. Well, the people who sponsored it were people who were the head of the mirror company that existed in Russia for this little joint venture we had established.
Okay.
And we were on our way back to America, and they said, well, come on over, and we'll have dinner tonight.
Right.
And this was like the night before we came back. And so we went over to their flat.
How many people were there altogether?
Oh, about I'll say about 10. And
who were these people?
Yeah, they were.
I don't expect names, but I mean, what kind of people were they? Professionals, scientists?
Scientists for the most part. Almost everyone there had a degree in physics, like I did. I have a degree in physics. And the one thing in common that we had was that we were all pulled together for this project.
Right.
And everyone there were Russians except for the British friend and an American friend. And we were the western half of the whole thing.
And the Russians spoke English passably well, obviously.
But particularly the two hosts. They were very good. The husband was a physicist, and he was very high up in the Russian Academy of Science, and he had pretty well published and everything. And he was the head of this little company that was the Russian anchor of the joint venture. And his wife, I was told, was some sort of I guess you might call it an apparatchik or something.
Right.
She had a degree of her own in some profession, and she'd be in an organization where she could exercise her skills. But at the same time, she was climbing a parallel ladder in the Communist Party. and so she was like the communication link between the Communist Party and the organization. That was what I understood. Mm-hmm. That's what I understood the relationship was.
Right. Now, this is 1992, folks. I want you to remember that. We're getting on close to 20 years now.
Yes, and so we were there, and it was a typical Russian dinner, and what they typically do is then have a bottle of chilled vodka, and they would have toasts around the table. And when it came up to my American friend's turn to have a toast, he didn't actually have a toast so much as he stood up and he just wanted to kind of express his observations about Russia. And in the process, he was saying that he observed all these different racial differences. And the bottom line to it was basically that he noted that there was people had high cheekbones, and he related that to Mongol blood.
An Asian genetic base there, sure.
Yes. Yeah. And he was he made some comments about that, and with some of them you could tell it was a sore point. You know, and particularly I think with the wife, I think she was a little bit irritated because as soon as he stopped talking, she kind of took over and started saying things like, "Well, you have to understand what the true Russian is." And so she started to describe what a Russian is truly as a race, I guess, is what she was starting to talk about.
Right.
And then this decayed, I'll say decayed, into her wanting to let us know that we were not as perfect as we thought we were.
Mm-hmm.
And so
she was hardcore then, is what you're saying. I get it.
Well, you know, I was surprised. I really was. I was surprised that she came across that way because her husband was so easygoing and everything.
Well, behind every successful man is an apparatchik. Remember that.
I guess so. Yeah. But anyway, she started this thing about well, you know, you think you're so perfect. And and everything.
American arrogance. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And then she said, "Well, you had a chance to vote for a woman as a vice president, and you didn't do it." And it was like
a feminist too, huh? Mm-hmm.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And then we said, you know, like, well, you don't vote for a vice president, you know, you vote for a ticket, you know, mm-hmm. And she said, well, no, you know, you had a chance to do this great event of voting for a woman for vice president, and you didn't take it.
And you're going to pay now, folks.
I get, and then she said, oh, but you know, the tables are going to be turned for you. Mm-hmm. And this is where she started to lay the bomb, and that was that she said it. Very soon you're going to have a black president, and then, well, we were saying, well, you know, that's not unimaginable. You know, they're giving the right guy at the right time. Why not, you know? And then she said, what if I told you that you're going to have a black president very, very soon, and he's going to be a communist? And it was like, you know, you know, what do you say when someone says that to you? And during this whole time, by the way, the Russians didn't participate at all, except for the two hosts. They all kept their heads down, just kind of listened, and they didn't make a peep. They didn't say a word.
Wow, that's amazing. I can just about imagine the silence in that room there.
It was. Yeah. No, it really was. And so the only people that spoke were a little bit from us on the western side, mm-hmm. but mostly it was the wife that was doing the talking. And
a black president who's a communist. Now she said
exactly.
Pretty soon, what did that mean? This is 1992 now.
1992.
The Clintons had just taken over. Remember, we're just stepping into 8 years of the Clintons, or about to.
Yeah. Well, this was in early '92. So
okay.
It was still. It was before even before that election.
Right. All right.
Right. and so, well, okay. So she continued on, and she said she obviously wanted to make it more concrete for us.
All right, hold on, Tom, right there.
Yeah.
If you would, we have to take a little break. We'll come right back.
Okay.
Mr. Tom Fife, we're going to put the story in question, the essay, back up. It's on Rense.com now. We're going to put it back up under Tom's name and guess, and we'll come back and hear more of this story, which is fascinating, in just a couple minutes. All right, we're back with Tom Fife, attending a most interesting dinner in Moscow, so to speak, in 1992. So this woman it sounds to me like she was getting pretty energized.
She was, and yes, she was quite hot under the collar at first. And you can tell that was what started it off.
Okay, I understand. Now, when she said this, black president, and then threw in the kicker, and he's going to be a communist too, what was her demeanor when she said that? Do you remember? Was there anything particular that stuck in your mind about it? It must have been. I mean, you remembered it very clearly, but tell me more about her disposition. What you're suggesting here is that what she was relaying to you by way of a taunt was knowledge aforehand. Yes.
And everything, I should make note that everything she said it as though it were a foregone conclusion. And I'll tell you in the next little bit, you can see that it was building up to something. And I think, bottom line, I think she got carried away.
In other words, she flapped her gums too much.
I think she did, yes. But you could... I think it all started from what my friend said, and I think she just took that as she just used that as a springboard to go into this thing, and I maybe the vodka got the better part of her. I don't know.
Well, that and the feminism.
Yeah, yeah. That. What do you know? But what she wanted at about that point,
Oh, excuse me, Tom. Excuse me.
Oh, yeah.
When she laid that first one on you, you're going to get a black president.
Yeah.
How long was it after that she said the communist thing, and what was the reaction in the room, if any?
Okay. Like I said, the Russians didn't bat an eye. They just, for the most part, they had their heads down like they were thinking and listening. And they didn't really respond. Well, not really. They didn't respond. Then
I would suggest the woman may well have been KGB also, in addition to the rest of her dossier. There's something to think about that, because here was this company formed to be the interface with the Russian Academy of Science. And we think that's going to happen without KGB involvement? I don't think so.
Yeah, exactly. And so I just know that the Russians didn't like her.
Uh-huh. Interesting.
I know that.
Interesting.
They told me they didn't like her, and they personally didn't want to have anything to do with her.
Wow.
But
they were also doubly glad they weren't married to her, right?
but they had gone. They had the husband as their professor.
Mm-hmm.
And he was even they were doing dissertations, and he would be the
I see,
the judge and jury for their dissertations. So it was an interesting situation. But in most part, I only got the idea that everyone respected him, but they didn't want to have anything to do with her.
Wow,
that was the general feel of it.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
And so she started lighting into things like, well, she obviously wanted to make the point that this wasn't just idle talk. So she started talking about him, she was saying like, she made the reference that he was already born. I don't know why she said that particularly, but she said that he's already born and he's educated. And he was. She referred to him as being Ivy League. And then he's. Well, one of us asked, "Okay, then what's his name or something?" And then she said Barack. And
now you're absolutely. The vodka didn't cloud anything here. You're absolutely certain she said Barack.
Yes, and in fact, you see, that's when. I said, you see, I've had a career in aerospace, and I've had to pick up a smattering of languages because I was in the military side of it, and I had to do scenarios with different countries and everything.
Oh, very good. Okay, so you didn't miss a thing. I got it. Sure.
And so one of the things I've had to pick up a smattering of different languages in the process.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew, I don't know Arabic, but I know a bit of it. And so I remarked, I said, Barak. I said, oh, that means like blessing in Arabic. And then she said, yes, it means blessing. And then she then she made this thing about how that he would become a blessing for world communism or some such phrase, and that he would help us to become the #1 power in the world. Not Russia necessarily, but I think communism would be the #1 power.
Makes sense. I understand.
Yeah.
It was the ethic she believed in rather than the physical country.
Yeah, the party.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the thing with communists. They're always the party man.
This is fascinating. And hold on, Tom, I have to pause again. But I, again, would encourage all of you to reread this essay by Tom Fife. The first time I heard of Barack, I'll put it back up momentarily on my homepage under guests, under his name, and pass it around. Tom was there. We'll be right back. Okay, and we're back talking with Tom Fife. This is a remarkable story, and go ahead, Tom. Tell us more, if you would. This woman, I get the distinct impression that she was almost out of central casting, if you will. I'm getting that larger-than-life kind of persona that only a diehard, devoted, true believer, I guess, a Kool-Aid drinking communist could have.
And that's a funny thing about her, because when all the time up to this point, and even afterward, this is a singular event. This evening when she did this, all the other time she was rather subdued, and
she was being a good KGB agent, taking mental notes.
She was always subdued, but this evening something torched her off, and she did this. But actually, okay, I was remembering where I was. Yeah, that she was rattling off his credentials, so to speak. But it was at this time that she made his pedigree known, and this was the key to me recognizing who she was talking about these years later, because she said that his mother was white.
Well,
and from mid-America, she said, the middle of the country. She said. And that his father was black, and he was from Africa.
This is amazing. I remember the essay. I read it very well. It's back up on the home page again. So, continue, please. This woman is just roll. She's on a big roll here.
She was on a roll, yes. And then she made, actually, it was at this point that she made one of the most, what I thought, odd comments of the whole evening. And she said, "That's right, a chocolate baby." And when she said that, she said it with such, almost like arrogance and contempt. It was it was very, very strange feeling. And like I said, it was probably one of the most remarkable comments, or the way she said it, that I heard her say all evening. And that's right. And then she said again that she was emphasizing that the father was African, and that she thought that was going to be a better sell. I'm using my own words there.
Yeah, I got it.
A better sell into America, him being African as opposed to American black, because she said that they had thought this all out very carefully. She said, and that being African, he won't have a slave stigma.
Got it.
And that was a particular point she was trying to make at that point. In this whole thing she was saying about him, that was one of the things that she thought was so clever. It came across to me that she thought it was so clever that they had considered this, and that they
in a way it was. The whole thing was clever. I mean, this guy has been groomed, obviously, from a long time ago.
Groomed, yes.
And in your essay you mentioned that she did also remark that he was from, or would be thought of as being from, Hawaii.
Yes.
That's just totally over the top. There's no odds. This is no coincidence, obviously.
No. There was one other. I'll tell you this too. There was one other thing that I didn't write down here, and that was when she was a little bit. She acted a little bit confused at first when she was talking about where he was from, and then she landed back and said Hawaii. But at first she said Washington State, and then she landed back on Hawaii, and she said no, Hawaii. And in reading up about him or about his background, I did make note of the fact that for a while they lived in Washington State before they went to Hawaii. I don't know. I think I'm reading that correctly. I'm just bringing that up because she did have this momentary confusion about whether it was Washington or Hawaii.
Well, all right. So we got Hawaii, and then she mentioned he was schooled partly in California.
In California, and that he was now in Chicago. and that he was very soon. This was like an eminent thing with her at this point in time. That very soon he was going to be in the legislature in Chicago.
Yeah. Well, again, there certainly are no coincidences of this magnitude. She knew. She was somehow apparently on the inner circle, or privy to certainly the knowledge level at that kind of a rarefied atmosphere, and just let it out. How interesting.
And like I said, this was a singular event. She matter of fact, after that, I probably only saw her just a handful of times in the next 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And she wasn't absolutely no more social events. It was always just in public after that. I never saw her again in a social environment. This was the one time, really. And let me. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. She made a big point. Oh, that's right. She went back and as a background, I think she started talking about how well they were established here in the United States, and she mentioned 3 cities that were of particular interest to her. She said they were New York, Chicago, and San Francisco.
Well,
yep.
When you think of the communist agenda, certainly one of the key planks is the sexual moray destruction of a nation, and certainly San Francisco would be the flagship city in that regard. Fits. Well, this is a fascinating story. Think of it all. The name, the race, Hawaii, California, Washington, Chicago. President, a chocolate baby president. Interesting, to put it mildly. Be right back. This hour is Tom Fife, and again, thanks to our friend of so many years, Charlotte Thompson-Iserbyt, for arranging to have Tom on the program. I first published his essay back on November the 20th of last year. It is entitled The First Time I Heard of Barack. You'll find it in the guests section at rense.com under Tom's name right now. This is quite a story. And again, these are all physicists, scientists, with the exception of the big mouth. I mean, the the ever humble wife of the host of the evening. The whatever. All right, this is wild. Now, this doesn't prove anything. It is, as Tom says in his essay, definitely anecdotal. But again, you have to ask yourself, what are the odds? Ridiculous. Don't even go there. Yeah. This woman knew something, and she spilled the beans, perhaps through a series of circumstances, from the vodka, getting her feminism and her party loyal. This is more than a party loyalist. This woman was obviously fanatical, from what I'm hearing in your voice and your words.
She had a certain level of intensity in her voice. Yes.
Yeah, I hear that. All right. So when she was finished with her rant, what did you have any response to her allegations or her prognostications?
Well, when she was absolutely done with what she was saying, it was one of those moments when everyone looks at each other and realizes it's time to go home now, isn't it?
That's funny.
And that's what it was. When she finally stopped talking, and you could tell that she was kind of done. That's when everything broke up. She came back around to each of us and gave us little trinket type parting gifts, but that was
little KGB going away gifts. Is that it?
Yeah, like it was. I think she gave me a little packet of of postcards. They were like.
I understand.
Yeah, like a pack of 25 DVDs you might give to some stranger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is wild. Who have you shared this with, Tom, before writing the essay and releasing it? Have you talked about it much over the years, and especially, I guess, in the last couple of years? When did this all come back to you? And not that it ever left, but when did it really start to loom up again?
No, you know what? It never did leave me because of the impact of someone telling you that they've engineered to take over your country.
Well, obviously, yeah.
That doesn't leave you, you know. But then when you come back and you get into things again, and you just kind of it goes in the back of your head. But I did mention it a few times to some friends when it was fresh, and I had just come back, and the general sentiment was, oh, you know what blowhards those commies are, you know.
Right.
So yeah. Of course they would say that, and that was it. And I kind of thought, well, okay, there's nothing there, you know. All I have is the words out of her mouth on that evening.
You didn't know Barack Obama from anything back then.
That's
Nobody
the whole
did.
Thing. No one did. Yeah. And it wasn't until, for me, it wasn't even until after 2004. It was sometime later when I found out that this Barack Obama guy had a background, and it included a white mother and a black African father, and all these the Hawaii thing, the Chicago thing, and it was like, I don't know, if you can imagine a rubber band snapping from 1992 back into your head, it was a really strange feeling, and it was actually scary. It was as scary as hell.
I'm sure. And then I guess when you realized or heard that his teenage mentor was a black American communist named Frank Marshall Davis, that's another interesting little part of it.
Every time I turn around, there's another layer that and that's why I mentioned the thing about Washington, because I didn't write it down here, but it was just since I wrote this, I read this thing about how the mother had been in Washington before she went to Hawaii, and so I'm thinking she just got confused. You know, she was sitting there. She probably knew the whole itinerary of everyone for the last.
Sounds like it.
And she just got confused for a second about where it was where he was born. You know, or it's
very understandable. Crazy. Sure, absolutely. No, she had the whole story. It sounds like everything. And at what point did you realize that? Now we got to stop thinking about physical geography here. We got to put this idea of the Soviet Union and physical Russia out of our minds. That's not the issue. The issue is world communism.
I think, yes. Yeah.
I
think that's what we're talking about.
Yeah. When did you realize that world communism owned this country? A year ago, 6 months ago, 2 years ago? When did it all kind of agglutinate into your head into one obvious image? This country ain't what it seems to be.
I could be really smug and say the 4th of November, but
That works. Hey, listen, that works. That's fine.
I don't know. I really didn't. When she said it, I thought it was impossible.
Well, who wouldn't? You had nothing to tag it to back then at all. Nothing.
No, there was nothing there,
and 10 years would go by before anything would even be on the radar, if then, and maybe 12 years.
Only if I were really looking. Yeah, if I were really looking,
right.
It would have been a while for me to actually. Yeah, and of course, like I said, it came into place. Oh, that was. I'll tell you another thing. It was so darn frustrating with this whole thing. Is that when I finally got together, I'm sitting there by myself in my room, and I'm looking at. I'm thinking about this thing, and I'm sitting there thinking, I know something, and I got to tell somebody. I can't let this go by. It's like this has been laid in my lap, and I have to get the word out. And I sat there, and I tapped away on my computer, and I wrote emails to every talk show host I could think of, and all the local shows and everything. I never got a beat back.
I'm sure.
Back.
No question.
And I just kept on writing, phrasing it differently. Maybe he didn't hear me the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And I over and over and over again, and I never got a word back. And it wasn't until literally Election Day that someone let me tell my story for the first time publicly. Yeah.
Wow. I remember reading the essay, as I said, and I was getting email from people saying, "Come on, who is this guy, Tom Fife?" And this is ridiculous. It couldn't have happened this way.
Hey, I'm here, and I swear this is all true. I was there.
Tom, I hear it in your voice. It's fine. You don't have to worry about it. I've been doing this a long time. You're telling something exactly as you experienced it.
It's just crazy. It sounds crazy, but it's the absolute truth. And that's the thing. And that's part of the thing that scares me.
Well, it should scare a lot of Americans. Everyone listening should be worried because it tells all of us that there are no accidents, there are no coincidences, that everything is planned. And if they planned Barack Obama nearly 20 years ago, what have they got planned for the next 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20 more? They, the controllers, they, the people, clearly, at the very least, tied intimately to the City of London banking cartel, if in point of fact that isn't one of the primary nodes of this beast, which I believe it to be. We have communism. You can play the label game all you want. What we have here is an insidious, evil, world control monstrosity that is literally able to create and destroy nations at will, and tens and twenties and ultimately hundreds of millions of human lives, and ultimately billions, because if they decide to release H5N1 or some successor virus in a pandemic format, we'll lose 80, however many percent of the world population they wish to cull, they will. That's what it tells us. That's what this tells me, and I think it tells the same thing to most anyone else listening. Does that sit well with you?
It doesn't sit well with me, but I think you're telling the absolute truth. Yeah, and that's what I feel from the whole thing.
Mm.
There's just a large scheme out there that's almost like She used the word irresistible.
Oh, really?
She did say that. She said that this whole thing, that he would be irresistible, and that America would not be able to resist.
Right. Well, America couldn't. You got NLP. You got all kinds of obvious coaching. You have the best camera angles. You got the works. And you're right. She gave you literally a 17-year glimpse into the future. What a scene. Tom, thank you very much for being here and sharing this with us tonight. It's been fascinating.
Thank you.
All right. Take care of yourself.
Okay, thanks.
Good night. Mr. Tom Fife. There is one for you to think about. Okay, back in 21 hours.